Well, this is a great morning. Thank you so much for being with us today as we share, as we break into the new year for our morning meditations. And we are always thankful for you and for your consistent support for our ministry here. My name is the Reverend Dr. William L. Johnson III. I am a chaplain here at Christian Hospital Northeast in St. Louis, Missouri. And I thank you so much for joining us once more. Well, today's message for our morning meditation is entitled Praying Our Prayers. Praying Our Prayers. It is in this moment, I want to take time to remind us that as we are beginning the new year, it is important to pray. It's important to talk to God, talk to our Creator about what it is that we are entering into as we enter into the new year, into this new chapter, into this new phase. Whatever it is that's happening in your life, it's important to talk to the Creator about it. And that's just the way it is. I believe that sincerely. Now, whether your prayer life or whether your faith tradition leads you to do it one way or the other is still important for a number of reasons. One, not only a communication between us and our Creator and Creator God, but it also calls us to actually think about those things that are most important to us at the center of our being and cause those things to be reflected on as we put those things before God in prayer. So I want to encourage you to take time to pray. And in doing so, I wanted to talk today about praying our prayers. Mind you, I did not mention saying our prayers, but praying our prayers. When I was a little boy, I remember being taught prayers, and there were many prayers, and there was nothing wrong with learning those prayers at that time. In fact, they have served me well all my life, and they certainly served me well in my adult years. I learned how to pray when I went to bed at night. Now I lay me down to sleep. Many of you know of those prayers, or when we are praying, offering a grace over a meal, or those things in which we pray, thanking God for waking us up another day and to start our journey. For those of us who have that kind of prayer life, we have learned how to say prayers. But there is a difference between saying prayers and praying prayers. Because in the context of saying prayers, they may not be coupled with your real life experience and need for an answer or for some transformational moment to change. However, when you're praying prayers, there is a sense of urgency behind those prayers. Those prayers speak of our experience tied to the words that we say. And when we're talking to God, it's important to know that. The 46th Psalm is such a prayer. It is one of those prayers that if you're not careful, you can read it and enjoy it as a poem, if you will, something that is a work of art, some literary piece that you might observe. But to read it the way that the psalmist wrote it, no, we have to connote or at least note for ourselves that there is something more than just saying prayers here, but there is a praying, an experience that is tied to this prayer that speaks to our lives. This prayer or this psalm or song to be sung comes from experience. It comes from a place of desperation. It comes from a place of feeling like there is no help but God. And so that when the psalmist gives us these words, the psalmist is speaking from the psalmist's own experience and saying, hey, I've been through some difficulty. And this psalm should be used whenever you are going through a difficult time, whenever you're meeting you've gotten a diagnosis that you are not quite sure, whenever you have something that is a challenge in your life, dark days, difficult days, loss, grief. These moments call for something more than just saying prayers. You need something that speaks to your experience. And so I talk about praying prayers. Here's what the psalmist writes in Psalm 46. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear, even though the earth be removed, and though the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea, though the waters roar and be troubled, though the mountains shake with its swelling. There is a river whose streams shall make glad the city of God, the holy place of the tabernacle of the Most High. God is in the midst of her. She shall not be moved. God shall help her just at the break of dawn. The nations raged and the kingdoms moved. He uttered his voice and the earth melted. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. Come behold the works of the Lord, the psalmist says. Who has made desolations in the earth? He makes wars cease to the end of the earth. He breaks the bow and cuts the spear in two. He burns the chariot in fire. Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. You know why I love that psalm, and I've shared it before for our morning meditation, is because it speaks to the heart of desperation. It says, the God of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. In other words, when you are with your back against the wall, and some of us have been there, and some of us are in a place where we are trying to make really crucial decisions, and we're not quite sure what to do. It seems like everything that we know is going haywire, and everyone that we know seems to not be stable. And we're in a place in our nation and in the world where we feel the challenge of our lives, and we're wondering where our help will come from. Well, I'm glad that the psalmist gave us this one to call on. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. And one of my favorite things to say, I'll say it over and over again, that it's good to know that God is present, not just when we're in good moments, but when we're especially in trouble. It is good to know that no one else may be there, but God will show up and not abandon you in your moment of trial and difficulty. And that is why I love this psalm. This psalm speaks to all of these changes in our lives. There was some years ago, I remember distinctly, my son was maybe a few months old. I say a little bit more than that. He may have been 9, 10 months old. And I remember picking him up from daycare and bringing him home. Now, I was a new dad. His mom was at work. It was my day to pick him up from daycare and to bring him home. And I did just what I did. I was a student in seminary. I was working, doing all these other things. And I pick him up and I bring him home and put him in his little walker, one of those things. I don't know if they have many of them. I haven't had kids in a long time, but his little legs just love to kind of go. And once he got into this walker, he started moving around. I went and put some things down here and something over there just to keep him busy. I put him in that walker. And boy, that little guy ended up taking off and started running in that walker until he got to the curtain at the window and shook it. And there was a little hook that held the curtain back away from it, opened it up. I don't know what to call it, but all I know is that there was a little hook that hooked on the wall hook. And there, before I knew it, I heard something fall. And I turned around to look around. I didn't see it. But as soon as I made it over to him, I noticed that I couldn't find the hook, but I looked at him and he had his eyes were that big. And I knew right away that he had swallowed the hook. What was I going to do? So I pulled him out of the walker and I'm looking at him and I'm looking all around to see whether or not I was mistaken. And sure enough, after I looked around a minute, I looked at his eyes and it seemed that he was choking off of the hook. So I did what every dumb dad would do. I stuck my finger down his throat to try to retrieve the hook. And sure enough, the more I did that, the further it slid. And when I tried to reach a little further, sure enough, I could not reach it. But then something said, well, push it. That was dumb. And I pushed it further and he looked, and before I knew it, he was crying, which means that it got dislodged from his throat, but I was still nervous because what would it do to his little body? And so I, no sooner than I sat and thought for just a quick second, sure enough, the warden called, my ex-wife, my wife called at the time, and she called and wanted to know what we were doing. And I wanted to lie, but I could not. And I told her what happened. And she immediately says, get him to the hospital. I'll meet you there. And not long further after that, I made it to the hospital with my son in tow. He's laughing and giggling and back to his regular self, but he has a hook in his body. And when I get him there, they x-ray. She meets me there. I don't know how moms know how to drive faster than the speed of light, but she gets there. And when we're there, they give us the x-ray and they call us back to let us know a couple of things about where he was. And they said to us, listen, don't worry about the hook. We got some really good news and we got some troubling news. I wasn't sure which one I wanted. The good news was the hook wasn't going to bother him. It would come out the other end in just a few hours. The troubling news was in the x-ray, they noticed when they took a picture of him that they found that he had, yes, walking pneumonia in his lungs. Now, the part of that is that we wouldn't have known that he had pneumonia, walking pneumonia in his lungs if it had not been for the hook that he swallowed that took us to the hospital. You get the point. And so that sometimes when we're wondering where God is in those dark moments, it means praying a prayer like that, like I prayed on my way to the hospital. The Lord of hosts is with us. The Lord God of Jacob is our refuge. Be still and know that I am God. In other words, God reminds us that God is still God, even when what we see does not look so good. And I want to encourage you as you begin praying your prayers this year. You may be looking at circumstances that don't look so good. Finances may not be in shape. Relationships may be on the rocks. Family situations may be topsy-turvy. But I want to encourage you to keep on moving forward, knowing that you are praying your prayers and God knows. So just be still and know that God is God. And I learned that I can be confident in this thing, that if I've talked to God about it, I've given it to the one who is my creator, then as much as I can do, I'll do all that I can do. But when I can't do any more, I know it's out of my hands. I want to give you that gift today. As you're journeying right now, and as you're making your way, starting your new year, pray prayers, not say prayers, but pray prayers for your family. Pray prayers for your friends. Pray prayers for those who are your coworkers. Pray prayers for those who are your legislative leaders. Pray prayers for those who are law enforcement around you. Pray prayers for those in whom will be strangers that you will never see again, but maybe once in a lifetime. Because what you discover is that those prayers are potent when you put them before God with meaning. Not saying prayers, but praying them. Well, I wanted you to know we're grateful for you. Thank you so much. And we want you to be reminded that you're loved, you're appreciated, and you're irreplaceable. These messages are meant to encourage and inspire you. I hope this one does. But as you read and share and listen to these messages as they come forward, we invite you to give us feedback on them so that we can try to do a little better in presenting them to you. Thank you so much for your time, and God bless you and bless you for the entire week and year. Thanks again.